Hello, my name is Tom MacDonald. You're listening to the Tom MacDonald Podcast. And on today's show, we have an interview with Neil Godden. Neil Godden is an author of a book called The Business Owner's Survival Guide. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Neil, then I'm going to welcome him to the show. For more than 35 years, Neil has served clients across Canada and the U.S. As a business and professional development speaker, trainer, and writer, headquartered in Vancouver, Canada, he has addressed more than 100,000 people from coast to coast. While he has served many large corporations, including the Shell, the Royal Bank, TELUS, Dun & Bradstreet, Subway, and McDonald's, Neil's works mainly with independent businesses, also known as the turnaround guy. He specializes in working with small and medium-sized businesses in crisis. In these turnaround cases, the sales always have to be doubled or tripled immediately and at minimal cost. And in this ebook, he shares the best of his hard-hitting turnaround strategies with us. Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tom. Delighted to be here.
Great to be here. Now, has this been a long time coming, this book? Is this your first book that you've put out? And why are you putting it out now?
Well, it's the third book. The first one was called Selling in the Comfort Zone. The second one, it was the original of the Business Owner Survival Guide. I actually wrote the original of this one about 10 years ago. We had the last big recession, and decided with the recent pandemic that it was time to update it, rewrite it, and launch it again. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very timely, of course, as well. When you were writing this book, it's based a lot on the knowledge that you have over the years and the course of the history of all of the work you've been doing with a lot of corporations. Just tell me quickly, what are some of the big takeaways that you've had in your career when you've seen corporations come and go and the challenges that humans face in running businesses?
Well, basically,
that's a pretty big question. I know
it is. Terrific question. Some of the biggest things I've noticed are the perseverance, the ability to resist the conventional wisdom. The renegade tends to be the success, at least in the starting phases. Mm. And then if he or she has the wisdom, then they'll roll it over for somebody else to run once they've got it up there, and they'll go start something else. And people are reluctant to change. Neophobia, it's called, fear of the new.
Neophobia?
Neophobia.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And, one of the greatest buzzwords recently is pivot. We got to pivot here.
No kidding.
We got to pivot there. We used to call it turning on a dime. Well, when you're doing turnarounds, which I love to do, it's all about turning on a dime right now. And that's what we're seeing in the current situation. And hopefully more people will get used to the idea that when something happens to your business, you don't just keep doing business as usual. You look hard for what's going on, for what's changed, and you move with the change. You lead the change. That's, I think, one of the big keys to success.
And that's a number of companies or business leaders don't do that. I guess that's why people like yourself are in demand, because there's some sort of disconnect from the beginning or the renegade part, the transition from a leader being an entrepreneurial startup to being able to take that company to the next level.
Yeah, it's one of the many, many fault lines in business development. That's why the statistics are stacked up so badly against small business.
Well, tell us a little bit about statistics, because I've been in business for 40 years. I managed to stay out of bankruptcy. I've managed to not fail, and I've been in the same darned industry forever, which is telecom. And that's fortunate. I think that's probably beat the odds that way. But a lot of people don't beat the odds when they start into business, Neil. And what have you found are some of the elements that they're either missing or that they haven't spent enough time researching before they dive into it headlong?
People get into business for a lot of different reasons, but one of them for many, many people is that they have a passion. They want to do something. It's usually something that they've invented, created, or looked at what somebody else is doing and said, I can do it better. And they hate the boss. They've always wanted to be on their own, so away we go. The challenge is once they get into business, then they pursue their passion, whatever that might be. And that's the biggest mistake that they can make, because what you do is you create hills and valleys in your business. You get some work in, You devote all of your energy to getting that work out, whatever it is, or that product, and they don't keep up their marketing and their sales. I brought the first sales.
No kidding. I've lived that nightmare.
And I have fun with audiences when I'm speaking on this topic. I'll say, how many of you have gone to work, wherever that is, whatever that is each day, thinking today I'm going to make a couple of calls to these key people, that are going to open up my market, key customers. But they get to work and they're immediately distracted. Customers need this. There's on-site work that needs that. There's a service call. There's an emergency. There's this and that. Now it's noon, and then the afternoon is more of the same. And then all of a sudden it's 7 o'clock and you started at 6, but the day is over. Did you make those calls? Anybody here?
Yeah.
And all the hands go up, right?
All small businesses people are service oriented, aren't they?
They're service
as
oriented.
opposed to sales oriented.
That's right. Afraid of sales. Absolutely scared to death.
And so it's really amazing that that a lot of us even survive.
That's the key right there. And of course, when they get into an absolute crisis, when it's all or nothing, when it's down or out, then the fastest thing that we can do to help them is to get them on a marketing and sales campaign. Guerrilla marketing, if they sell B2C, business to customer.
Yeah.
And pivot marketing if they are B2B, business to business. Mm-hmm. And without the things that scare them. That's why the topic of my first book was selling in the comfort zone.
Yes.
Comfort for your prospect, comfort for you.
For you.
No cold calling, for example.
Yes.
Just toss that instantly, out of your vocabulary.
That's interesting. So many people getting into business have this precept of what it takes to be successful, and it's often wrong or misguided.
Totally.
Let's get into one of the topics you said here, and it's a perfect segue. We there's always a market. There are always people who need what we sell. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about what you mean by that. I mean, I get it. I mean, anybody builds a better mousetrap. That's always a good idea, as long as the cost and the value is there for people. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there are people that come up with something that's completely unheard of, like an Apple iPhone, for instance, things like that. But going down the line to more of a localized concept, how can people find something where they know it will be sellable? Or are you saying that there's always a market for just about anything out there? Then if that's the case, how do you evaluate it? Is that where you're going with this kind of a line when you said there are always people who need what we sell?
Well, generally speaking, there's very, very few businesses or industries that operate without selling something that people need. Otherwise, it's a luxury purchase. So when you skin it away, almost everything, unless you're selling knickknacks in a gift store, people generally speaking don't need that. Although there are collectors who may desperately want it and be prepared to, So most businesses sell something that people need. But when you're selling traditionally and marketing traditionally, you're using a shotgun instead of a rifle. So you're putting your information out there to everybody. Perhaps you're posting on Facebook, or you've got a LinkedIn business page or whatever it might be. Or you're going into a trade show and you're selling to a whole market, a fraction of which actually need, are prepared to buy. Ready, willing, and able to buy. So what you have to do is target, spotlight instead of.
So I guess my question there would be: do you think it's better to generally be a specialist or a generalist in your business?
It depends on everything. Depends on the demands of your customers, your target group, your ideal buyers. What do they want from you? Never mind what you can do. Pull in a focus group. Pull in your 5 or 6 best customers. Pull in your 5 or 6 worst customers, people who bought from you once and never saw you again, because obviously they didn't have a continuing need, or you didn't satisfy the need that they had.
It's a great concept. How do you pay them to come and talk to you if they don't want to talk to you anymore?
When I'm doing
that's a great idea, though.
When I'm doing turnarounds, that's the kind of stuff that we do. I'll say, give me a list of your 10 customers that you lost. Well, let's do a lost customer search and rescue. right? And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to interview them. And sometimes we will literally pull a focus group of old customers together that were not satisfied and actually sit there with the owner, a couple of key people, 4 or 5 customers. Did this at a body shop in Toronto one time, downtown, and I guess the customer could see us gathered in the showroom, and he knocked the door. He said, "Are you guys still open? I need to pick up my car." I said, "We'll let you pick up your car if you join us for at least 15 minutes." And,
Timely.
all right, it was perfect. It was perfect.
So that's interesting. So you're saying that conventional wisdom is not necessarily something you should follow, because to me, bringing in your old customers, very few people would think of that.
Nobody. The stuff that we do, nobody does. And I mean, that's just one little hair.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, but you nailed it a moment ago when you said conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom is the enemy of success. When you're talking about business survival, particularly when you're on the edge. I'll give you an example. A manufacturer in northern British Columbia here going under, manufacturer of heating equipment. And of course it was November when we first got together. I flew up there to have a look and see what was going on. There's a unionized workforce. This is a serious operation.
Serious operation, yes.
A lot of jobs in town. And anyway, they were under severe threat of going down. And I said, "So what are the biggest obstacles? What's in your way? You know, here you are, here you need to be, and, you know, what's the tank traps?" And everybody voiced at the same time, "Can't sell our equipment in the winter. And it's the dead of winter. It's the beginning of the dead of winter, so there's nothing we can do."
And there you are. You got called in just at the right time to make it a Herculean effort.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they just basically told you, we're done. There's nothing. We've now entered the hinterland. Now we're not going to be able to do anything.
There are dealers in all the towns in the north mainly, and of course they had dealers everywhere, but in the north particularly, shut down during the winter in most cases. Many of them, heating, plumbing, and related services,
Just
open
closed.
1 day a week. Emergency service available, but their actual storefront or shop is closed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, so it would appear, if you buy into conventional wisdom, that they're done. Nothing could be further from the truth, and it turned into one of the most fun jobs that I've ever done. In this case, all we had to do was get together, start brainstorming and saying, "Okay, let's think guerrilla marketing." And what we did is we contacted a dealer in the closest town and said, "We know you're closed, but we want you to open on the Friday and Saturday this week, because what we want to do is we want to take a flatbed with a whole bunch of factory heating equipment and so on for use commercial, industrial.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is a truckload sale." And they said, "What? A truckload sale? Consumers? Yes. You know, because half of your inventory, because you focus on commercial industrial, you've got a whole bunch of dead inventory that's retail, you know, for homes. But nobody buys. They're set up for the winter, before winter deal.
There's your conventional wisdom kicking right in.
I told you.
Yes.
And I said, "Well, it's just not true.
We've done it year after year like that.
Market. There's always a market. There's somebody who's waiting another year, and hoping that they don't have a chimney fire, right? There's somebody who needs what you got now, and we got to go get them." So we pitched the dealer. He says, "Hey, I don't care. I got nothing to do. So sure, I'll stay open." So we put a banner on, got on the local radio station, Consumer Workshop. Everybody welcome, bring the kids, there's little goodies and this and that, from so-and-so to so-and-so. The fire marshal will be here to tell you exactly what you need to do this winter to stay safe. The building inspector is coming in to tell you about the specs, and et cetera, et cetera. because we lined these people up. They were delighted to have an opportunity to speak to the public,
Yes.
whether it's 2 or 200.
Yeah, that's true.
We had over 200 come out to the consumer workshop, sold every last unit on the truck, had to go back and pick up a couple of more units.
Wow, what an eye opener! Speaks to what you said earlier about pivoting, learning how to pivot.
Yeah.
And that's what you did there. You took their business model and pivoted it to something that still was in their inventory lineup, but just a different way of selling it. And you broke through their mind mold, their mindset, I guess. That must have been quite an eye opener for them.
It was an eye opener for them and for me. Because it was one of the first jobs that I did as I began doing this specialty.
Do you go into some of these looking at this and going, oh man, this is like insurmountable. We're screwed, but I'm going to give it a Hail Mary anyway?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I can think of one right now where I thought, this is impossible. No.
It's too deep. They're done. Just take them out to the back of the shed.
But I've done over 100 of these turnarounds, and I can still count on fingers of one hand those that haven't made it. There is always a market. They're motivated. They know that the status quo is not sustainable. They've got owner-operated decision making. All right, so we can change things on a dime. We can pivot, and so it's been quite a ride.
What a cool ride! That sounds. I would love to do something like that. That sounds like so much fun because you get to go into someone who needs a lifeline. You throw them a lifeline. And you know what? If it fails, it's not on you anyway. But if you manage to pull them around, everybody's a winner. Everybody pulls out of that. That's fantastic.
When it doesn't work, it's all on me.
Oh,
yeah, I suffer.
I bet. Well, I guess the invoicing makes it a little tricky at that point. Well, here's my bill. Well, wait a sec. I'm out of business.
In many, many cases, there is no invoice. Until there's an invoice, but
no collection on that.
No collection.
Yeah.
But
here's a furnace you can.
But that turnaround job, was an eye opener in many, many ways. I called a meeting of everybody in the plant, and people came home because they'd been laid off, came from home, and I said, "Now look, this works, obviously. So we got to take it on the road. We got to make a road show. We got to go town to town to town, dealer to dealer to dealer, and replicate what we've done here. And this way you're going to keep those jobs." So I asked everybody. Now we don't have. They let their professional salespeople go. So we don't have salespeople, and we don't want traditional selling. All right, we want people to go and introduce themselves and talk about what we just did in this first town and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 3 volunteers. One dropped out. 2 of them spent one day with me on how to sell just by rapport, right? And conversation instead of quotation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had 2 volunteers, unionized plant workers, who conducted the road show, and they turned them completely around in a matter of 2 months.
Wow, that's fantastic. That is a success story right there. That's incredible. We're going to wrap it on this podcast right now, Neil, but I'm speaking with Neil Godden. He's got a book out. He's called The Turnaround Guy, and his book is The Business Owner's Survival Guide, and it's out right now. Where can we pick this book up? Is it on Amazon, or are we doing it private sale? How is that working?
We are doing it absolutely, totally online, and the reason for that is that we're selling electrons, so we can make the price very inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing physical printing, shipping, and all the rest of it. And the other reason for it is that we want people to print this thing out and use the note shapes, use the note spaces and so on to actually develop plans as they're going through it. So it's available at neilgodden.com. That's my name, NEILGODIN.com. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And we invite people to give it a look.
That's awesome. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for your time, Neil. And we're going to catch Neil again. We've got a series of interviews with Neil coming up. So stay tuned and download or subscribe as soon as you can and listen to the rest of Neil's story. Quite an interesting one. Thanks again very much, Neil, for joining me.
My pleasure, Tom.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.